Hello and welcome to today's video. I'm really excited about this one. I've been wanting to do this video for a little while now, and I want to talk about my passion of printing your photos and why I think it's beneficial to print your photos and some of my experiences from printing those photos. It's a bit of a hard topic to cover. There's quite a lot of content out there already, but I don't think enough of it goes into the specific details. Well, I certainly didn't find any content that went into the details. So I'm hoping in this video I can help share some of my insights, some of my learnings. I'm still on that journey. I would no way say that I'm a professional in of professional printing. I think it's something that I'm still trying to hone my skills on and do, but I've definitely got a passion for it, and I can definitely see the value of doing this, and the reward I get for printing and seeing my work printed is unbelievable. I think it's way better than getting likes on social media for. I think for my instance, like to start to be able to kind of show like pictures like this on a printed form, I think is just amazing. Yeah, it makes me so proud. So let's get into it. So I want to start talking about the benefits of printing your photos and why I think it's beneficial. So before I printed any photos, I would look at it on the screen and I'd go, yeah, this looks really good. On my monitor, I put it onto my phone, upload it to social media. I go, yeah, that looks pretty good until you go to print it. And I think sometimes you notice things where you step back and you go, oh, I didn't quite spot that before. What's the best way to represent this? So, I think, for example, photos like this, I absolutely love this photo. I don't think a screen will ever do this image justice, just in terms of how it is. I've got this one at St. Paul's, which is the same again. Now you notice one has a border and one does not have a border. So that we'll get onto that a little bit later on. But the difference in how that actually does evaluate your image as well. I've got this A3 version as well of one I took down in Cornwall. I have so many comments on this. I've actually sold a couple of these as well because people absolutely love this image. And yeah, I do as well on printing. And this is on slightly different paper than the other two as well. We'll touch on the quality of paper and how to kind of match that as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit when it comes to compositions is lesson learned. So I was fortunate enough to go to Iceland back in July 2023 to go and photo the volcanoes. It was feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity for me. It was definitely once of a more touristy style volcanoes than the recent ones that are going off, which are obviously affecting people's lives, which isn't good. But I can talk about these ones more confidently. Now, I absolutely loved this photo when I first edited this. I was so excited. I come back, I uploaded it online. I was like, oh, this isn't really getting much attention, much traffic. I thought people would be absolutely loving it. It's very different. And I loved it so much, I wanted to get it printed. So I've got a selection of these photos printed. And I'll show this to you now a little bit closer up. As you can see with this image, now that I've kind of shown it to you, it's quite dull in the details. Like the colours here, like the blacks aren't really black, the beiges aren't really beige. And if you look at here as well, all the colours really been sort of burnt out. It just looks like it's massively undersaturated actually, which it isn't. But the way it was printed wasn't really ideal. And when I got this, it just didn't really look that spectacular. I was very disappointed when I got these. And that's kind of where I learnt my first lesson. So this is the photo beforehand, where I looked at this and I was like, this is definitely something special. And then I actually looked at the histogram on reflection, and I noticed that this wasn't particularly great in terms of exposure. The image is very underexposed. There's a lot in the shadows there, but also not a lot of detail in the shadows for that. So although it looked particularly great, and by the way, this is a slightly edited version. I don't have the original one from that photo, but I kind of tamed the colours down a little bit here because they were just, the whites were very blown out in that, so made it more yellow. But this can still be improved, and we'll talk a little bit around that. Here we go. So I was looking online for resources and I found this Sale Digital post which I think kind of summarise this quite nicely. That it says for the optimal brightness and contrast of your ratio. So before producing an image, check that the contrast between the values are correct. Note that the images on the monitor are backlit and the photos product is not. So essentially what you're looking for is this kind of level here is not great, and this level here is not great as well, where you've essentially got the colours one way or the other. So to kind of digest that down a little bit more, you're looking for something like this, which is a more balanced histogram, right? And what you can also notice here between this one and the top two are the height of these needles as well. So these kind of heights of these kind of mountain range, you can kind of think of it like a mountain range, are quite flat and quite low, whereas here they're a lot higher. So that's actually the number of pixels that have got colour in them as well. So not only are you looking at the shadows and the highlights, you're also looking at a number of pixels, which is the more information which will give you those better results. And then it recommends that something like this is probably better, where you've got really, you've got detail in the shadows, and then you've got detail in the sort of darks and details in the highlights. But I think something along these two, you're going to get far better results. Now, if I flick back to Lightroom, you can obviously see that mine was not like that. Now, after getting these back and spending many hours studying on how to improve my edits on that, I did get to this edit here, which I think is my favourite edit. And I've actually printed this out on a metal canvas, which I think looks incredible, which I will show you in a minute. But can you see on the histogram up the top here, this is now dramatically improved. There's a lot more pixels with colour, there's a lot better separation between the shadows, it's better exposed. Yes, it's still slightly underexposed, but that's okay for this type of volcano photography towards sunset is very difficult. I'm definitely not the master to be showing you this, but I think this is a really good example to show the extreme case. And then you can see I've got the whites as well nicely. So it's a lot better controlled. And if I zoom into the image, you can see on here now, you can see the detail better. The shadows are there. You've got good contrast between the darks and the lights, and far better colouring in the actual image itself. Now, I didn't print this on the same paper, so I don't have a fair comparison to show you, unfortunately. However, on this metal print I got through Sal Digital, which wasn't sponsored by the way, I just think this looks incredible. So I'll show you this now and you can let me know what you think. So I think to summarise on that section, I think printing your photos, especially for me and early on in my photography journey, I think has allowed me to really understand exposure, understand the contrast of colours, understand the histogram and how to kind of balance the histogram for prints, which I think has led me to actually just improve my editing style overall. So I think definitely as you're starting out or more beginner, just print some of your photos. You know, they don't have to go anywhere. I have a collection here. These are just A4 prints. I won't show them to you all, but I just got a folder. This is my own personal folder of just stuff that I look at, and I'm like, I really like these, you know. And I think building that up, I think will not only inspire your journey, but it also allow you to improve your prints. You can see as over time where my prints have started to get better, where I've actually started to progress as a photographer. And I think seeing that journey and to be able to visualize that and share that with friends and family when they come over as well, I think is absolutely critical. So for this next part, I want to talk a little bit about aspect ratios and printing sizes. So you can hit, there's many options that you can do. You can go down the A4, A3, A2, A1 route. You can go down the 16 by 12, the 18 by 12, the 24 by 16 ratios, not aspect ratios, image sizes, and they're all very different aspect ratios. I think the most common ones are somewhere around the four, the 5:4 aspect ratio. But you can get away with some that are in between the sort of 3:2 aspect ratio, so that's 3 long ways too high. Now, this one here was printed on a 16:12 print through a print shop, and I've had to crop in the end here, so I've lost a little bit of detail here and a little bit of detail here where it would have been a little bit wider. Now, because that is a popular print format. Now, that's what most people tend to shoot on or print for, because that you can easily buy frames for this. So I found that a lot of my style was working towards what would be easy to frame for other people. But if I just hold this up against an 18:12, can you see the extra amount, which doesn't look like a lot? So that doesn't look like a lot, but it is a lot, right? The extra feeling you get in that photo, I think, is a lot better. Now, I've chased the common aspect ratios, the A4 prints, the A3 prints, the A2 prints, and I think that's fine. You can do that. I think it's just you have to be aware of that when you're taking the photo. You're going to have to be aware that you're going to lose this part here where the light is catching it here, or you're going to lose more of the rock there, which might make this bit a bit too in your face and a bit too much of an obstacle in the photo. So that's, for me, the other lesson I learned from this is understanding aspect ratios and how to shoot. I now shoot everything in 3:2. That's my default, and I'll crop accordingly to whatever size I want to print for. That was it on that one. I'll show you in Lightroom how to export for some of these, because I think that is probably the next valuable lesson to look at. So you've gone out in the field, you've taken your photo, you absolutely love your photo, you've come back, you've edited it, and you are over the moon with your image. You're like, right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get this printed, and I want to share this with the world. So there are many ways you can do this. So you can export your image as a file. So you can see on here I've got a few different options for how I used to do this. So I can print by my aspect ratio of 16, and I can kind of tailor my quality and my resolution around that style. I could do it for 32. I can also print for screen and that as well. This is a good option, and I think this can suit most people. I have learned there are optimizations for this though. So what I tend to do is I tend to have a print one which is at 100% quality. I've gone for a resolution of 300, which is pixels by inch. And I've gone for sharpen 4, and I've gone for matte paper. Now you can sharpen for screen if you want to share on social media. I think that's a really good recommendation. However, you can either go for matte or glossy. And this is something you're going to have to figure out with your artwork and what you prefer. I think I prefer matte for a lot of my images. And this image in particular, I think matte would work particularly well. However, something like a sunrise or something where there's a lot of light and you kind of want that kind of reflective nature in it, something like glossy paper would be good. But I tend to stick to default. And then it's got like an output setting as well, like low, standard or high. I find that the sharpening for high I think over sharpens things, and I don't like that. And low just doesn't. I just tend to leave it as standard. I think that gives the best result. You've got all your metadata stuff in there if you want to keep that in there, and you can also add watermarks if you want to. So if you want to print with those particular watermarks, you can do that. I might do another separate video on that, but I think there's plenty of content out there on adding watermarks. So that's one way of doing it. You just hit export, and that will export into the documentary that you've kind of defined up here. The other way to do this is if you go to the top and you hit print. So when you hit print on here, it will kind of come up with, okay, this is an A4 image and how this will look when it's been printed. And it kind of gets the size and scale to however you want. And you can kind of move and adjust this as you wish. You can change the margins down the side, you can change the row. You can also zoom to fit. So if I remove that, you can see actually how that looks. So if I zoom to fit, that gives, see the difference? That's the full image, and that's the one that will fit on the A4. So you don't have to have multiple files here. And then you can just sort of move this however you think is best. So I wouldn't want that tree there per se, and I probably want more of the mountain, so I'd probably move it more like somewhere like that, which will give me that print option. And then you've got other stuff. You don't have to have your guides there. You can choose the color of your background if you want to, and various other bits. You can choose to keep it square if you really want to. You can do watermarking in here. You can do an identity plate if you don't have a watermark, and you've got various other stuff. So in here, I've got my file resolution, so 300 ppi. Print standard for sharpening is the same, and max is the same with 100% JPEG quality. So you can do exactly the same settings on here. The other thing I want to talk about is borders and how you'd want to kind of do a border on your image. So if you use a stroke border, that will give you an even border the whole way around, and you can choose how many points you want that to be, and you can kind of increase that, decrease that, whatever your preference is. I tend to like 10 because you still get a lot of the image, but it gives you that nice little border, especially for when you're framing these and using a mount. I think that just helps bring that in a little bit more. So you can have that on or off if you want. You can use other margins, so you could put one at the, sorry, not the bottom, this would be the right. If you wanted to kind of have it more in one way or the other, but I tend to kind of leave those as default. But it gives you a lot more options to play around, which is, I think, the key for this. It gives you those options. And then you can kind of say, how do I want to print this? So if you have a printer set up, you can just go to print and select your printer. I do not, so I tend to just print a file and then just choose the file name of what I want to call that. And that's basically it. If you send that to the printers, you know that you're going to get that rough quality. So one very important thing that I actually missed from this is your page setup. So if you click on the bottom left-hand side when you're on the print section, you can choose what your format is for. So I have just a standard printer. This isn't a photography printer, but you can change your paper size. So I can go, right, I want A3. And you can change if you want landscape or portrait orientation. So I'm going to go landscape for this, and I'm changing this to A3. And you can see how that changes the image. That's still set at the A4 settings, but I can just increase this. So if I increase the cell size for both to the maximum it will allow me to do, then I know that's how that's going to come out perfectly on A3. And the same again if I go to here and I want to go to A2, which I don't actually have on here, which isn't ideal, but you get the message. So if I was to go back to A4 and do that, it will scale down nicely to A4, how you'd wish. And you can still click and move that around, whatever you think is the best positioning for your image. So you've come into this journey where you want to print your work. You've gone through the settings, you've optimized your photos to print. You then need to decide, where do I go to print these images? Now there's an array of lots of online companies you can go and send your images off to. They tend to give pretty good results. You can download ITC profiles, which will show you what paper and style you can do. Or you can try and find somewhere local, whatever suits you best. I've gone for the local route because there's a really good print shop in my town, and I just like going in there. I can talk to them a bit about it. When I was starting to get into printing as well, I could ask them advice on paper, colours, and they were super helpful. And I think that's the key, is actually being able to talk to people about this and kind of get their knowledge as well, right? Because for them, you know, if you're going to them and using them regularly, they're going to love your business, and go in turn, you're going to learn from them as well. So I think obviously if you can do that, that's my preference. But you might want to go for something online for, I don't know, the ease of use or adapting your style, or you might just want to do direct to shipping, which would obviously be a slightly different kettle of fish if you're going down that sell route. But some food for thought. Now, if you are going to go down one of the online routes, they do give you this option where you can download these ITC profiles. Now, an ITC profile you can add into Lightroom. And in Lightroom, you can then go to something called soft proofing at the bottom corner of your photo. Now, when soft proofing is enabled, you can go in here and you can select where you want to go from. So I've got some in here from the print space. I wanted to look at their paper and look at what one would suit me best. So you can click on one and then you can choose the intent, if it's relative or perpetual. And you can create a specific proof for that paper, which is absolutely fantastic if you decide, right, that is the print I want to go down. So you can see this image, and you can see how that looks for the Epson semi-gloss. If I change that to the Fuji matte, you can see how that's changed it more, and that's gone slightly duller in terms of colour. So if we go back, a bit more vibrant, a bit more duller. And then I can go back and change it for another gloss or this flex paper, and that makes that a little bit more yellowy actually. So the Fuji Flex is more yellowy than the semi-gloss, which brings out the whites a bit more. Now, why is that important? The reason that is important is because your paper preference will change how your image actually looks. Now you can create a proof copy for these. So I can go in now and I can say, right, okay, I like the Epson, no, I like the Fuji matte, but the colours change a little bit. So I could come in here and I could maybe add a bit more contrast in and maybe add a bit more, so create proof copy. And I can come in and I can add maybe a little bit more contrast, and I can add in maybe a bit of saturation just to kind of make that colour come out again. Okay, right, cool. I now have my proof photo, and you can just export that like we showed you before, and that's going to work really well, and you're going to get a very true quality between what you've edited and what you've got. And there's lots of benefits to doing that, and I really like that style because you can really hone in and make sure that what you are editing matches the paper that you're aligning to. A lot of professional landscape photographers with their own printers have got all this set up, right? They have their printer profile, they've got fine-tuned for everything they do. So when you see them print their photos, they might do a couple of, kind of waste images, which is where they kind of print it out, and they just need to do some optimizations, but they're going to be 90% there before they get going. Whereas the likelihood is that when we're getting going, we don't have that, and we're using an external one, we're probably going to only be maybe 40% there, and we're going to need to do a lot of work to kind of reiterate that, which does come at a cost as well. So all things to bear in mind. So I just wanted to finish the video talking a little bit about framing and what is the right frame for this. This is just a kind of standard IKEA frame, so a white frame and a white mount. I mean, it shows. I don't think it evaluates your work at all, and shows the benefit. It's a beautiful image, but I think it gets let down by the frame itself. So these are the things to really look at as well and experiment with. You can get the best paper in the world, but if you're putting it in cheaper frames, that's not always going to kind of give you the look or the finish you might not want. It might do, and some of the frames do look really good. I just think that maybe this one wasn't the best choice. So it will be something I'll be looking to change is the frame of that. But I think the mount itself, the white mount onto the photo, really complements the clouds and the white in the water. So I know a white mount for this looks really good. I could probably go for a black frame, depending on the wall. If it's a white wall, I think black frame could work really nicely. And that's all things to consider as well, is what colour background are you going to put this on? What's the colour of your wall? These are white walls in here. It's very neutral. It really makes the image stand out, being white and white, because all your attention goes to the colour in here. But also black can stand out in a kind of bigger area and where you kind of got more space, because then it really brings your eye into the image and then draws it into the photo. So that was kind of it on framing. So look, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really like framing. It's one of my passions. It's probably my favourite part of the, well, it's not my favourite part. My favourite part is going out and taking the photo, but it's my second favourite part, is actually putting that image to light and having to visualise that to people as well. That's just not through social media. I think it's a really nice format to present your work. So if you do like this video, please let me know in the comments if you want me to do more styles like this. I'm still finding my feet with printing itself, but I'm learning every day, and I really want to share that with you all, because a lot of stuff talks about selling your prints and how to get on that, but not of them actually talk about the details of printing, some of the challenges you face and the kind of lessons or hurdles you have to overcome. And it's those hurdles and that lack of information that I think is where the gap is, which is why I wanted to do this video. Until then, see you next time.